What's going on, everybody? And welcome to J Sports Seattle. Firstly, sorry for the little 2 week hiatus. I began a new job, so I'm working full time, so I've had no energy to make videos. Today is Sunday, so it's an off day for me. So I wanted to get this video out explaining just what's been going on for the past couple weeks, reviewing that Rams game a little bit, but not too much, and just going on to this off season. So if you like the video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share for more Seahawks and Seattle sports content. And without further ado, let's get on with the video. All right, so Mike. Firstly, I gotta congratulate Mike on his first season in Seattle. I mean, it didn't end the way that he wanted to, and quite frankly, the way that we wanted to as fans. But he brought a mediocre and flawed team to a 10-7 record in his first ever season as a head coach at any level, and that should not be ignored at all. I get it. I get that we had a third place schedule this year, but honestly, it was the perfect way for him to start off. Have a little bit of an easier schedule to start off, and then next year, once we revamp this team, put our test against harder opponents. Now that we'll be going into next season, knowing that we have a second place schedule. Even though it is a second place schedule, the opponents we have are both South teams. South divisions, I should say, and they're not good. At least as of this year, they aren't. I can't really predict what'll happen next season. I mean, look at the Vikings. I thought the Vikings were going to be like a 6-7 win team this year, and they were fighting for the 1 seed, and they should be a top 2 seed with their record 14-3. But it's just how it is. But yeah, like. We went out on the regular season with a bang with a win against our division rival in the Rams, albeit it was against a Jimmy Garoppolo-led Rams that almost led a game-winning drive against us and rested basically all their starters, which kind of gives me flashbacks of 2022 when they were injured and weren't really playing people, and we still barely beat them. And I think that's just what this roster is. This roster is just it's full of a bunch of people that are at best backup level people, like on our O-line, and mainly on our O-line though. And defensively, a couple other people too. Not really much. Like I think Josh Joby's at best a backup, and other than that, I mean, he still a win's a win. We got it done. Yes, we didn't win to get into the playoffs or anything, but we bumped the Rams down a seed, so that gives us some confidence heading into next season, knowing that if these guys do lose against the Vikings tomorrow, which I really, really hope they do, at least we had a play in that. So there's that at least. But even though we went out on the season with a bang, and we started the off season with an even bigger bang. The literal day after that game happened against the Rams, 9 a.m. announced, 9 a.m. local time and Pacific Standard Time, Ryan Grubb was fired, and this is what I've wanted. I mean, after like the moment I realized that he did not need to be like OC for this team anymore was in that Vikings game. That was like it was that screen pass play that we had a 1st and 5 and we got a 6-yard loss, and then we had a punt when we were in field goal range. That just doesn't cut it. That I knew at that point that wasn't going to work, and the team quite frankly knew it too. I knew I wasn't a casual when I said that Ryan Grubb needs to go. He's not ready yet, and that's okay. The team knew that too, and they had to go the separate ways because right now this roster is built for win now, not for trying to figure out stuff with a brand new offensive coordinator and see what he'll do 2-3 years down the line. No, our goal with this roster, right, is to win now because we have a lot of pieces that we can do to win now and do some damage in the playoffs or win a division title. And clearly Ryan Grubb is not it. So for any of you Ryan Grubb fans out there, I appreciate you for supporting him, but this was the right decision to move off of him. And we needed to move off of him because he was not leading this offense anywhere. He had some bright spots. He showed some flashes of what his potential could be once he refines his scheming in his game. But he's just not ready yet, and that's okay. I respect Grubb. I think he will have a good career in the NFL as an OC once he has more experience under his belt, especially if he goes under a different offense and learns under them, and can bring that to himself to add on to his offense and expand his playbook. But until that point, it was the right choice for us to move off Ryan Grubb. There are many more experienced coaches out there that we can go after I will go over my contender for who we should get and who I think we should definitely get for our next OC job, but I'll go over that later. But I mean, firstly, it starts with Mike. I mean, firstly, I'll talk about this in a second, but um, actually, I want to say, wait, which? Oh yeah, I was literally on the page. So yeah, Mike, he explains the firing, and he didn't want to throw shade at Grubb, which is fair. I understand that. But I'm going to read what he said. It's not like we weren't together on this thing the whole ride of the way, McDonald said. We just decided it was the right decision to make, and there's some specifics that I will leave that to Ryan and I's conversation today and throughout the season. But we want to mirror our football team. All the things we've been talking about, we felt it isn't what we were doing. We felt it isn't that we weren't doing these things on offense throughout the year. We've done a lot of great things, but we want our offense to be a physical unit and dictate terms of the defense, play complementary football, and get the ball to our playmakers frequently and in space, and let our quarterback play fast. So we were doing a lot of those things offensively, just decided to go a different direction. Basically, what he's saying here is Ryan Grubb, even though he didn't want to say it, he's basically saying that Ryan Grubb and him weren't compatible in terms of what he wanted for this offense. And it shows in the stats. Mike McDonald, he's a no-nonsense kind of guy. He's a physical guy. He wants to pound the rock on your team, and he wants to play good defense. That's just how defensive coaches work. So you got to give him an offensive coordinator that will complement him. So I was not wrong, and neither was the Seahawks for wanting to fire this guy after 1 year. Maybe if we had an offensive-minded coach, sure. But then again, the offensive-minded coach should be the one calling the plays. So that wouldn't have mattered in the end. But we have a defensive-minded coach. So we need an OC that can call plays that mirrors what he's calling plays on the defense and what he wants for this football team. But yeah, basically, I mean, the stats show it. We were 21st in points per drive, which actually, I actually saw an X post. If you look at the average points per drive we had this year versus the past 3 years we had under Shane Waldron, we averaged more points per drive under Shane Waldron than Ryan Grubb. And that's got to tell you something, that Ryan Grubb is just not ready to be an NFL coordinator. And that's all, like I said, that's okay. But the main thing right here is 28th in rushing yards per game. And running in our run ball usage rate, 37.2% of the plays, which was 5th lowest rate in the league. I understand we have a bad O-line, but Shane Waldron made it work. We still have the same, basically the same O-line we did last year. Obviously, we had some new players like Lamea and Jarrell, but we have Charles Cross is still here, and our center's just been a mess the past few years. Our O-line's just been trashed the past couple of years. Yet Shane Waldron found a way. So I think the reason why they decided that Ryan Grubb was not the move was because they saw that what Shane Waldron could do with a bad O-line, and saw that even though he wasn't the best, he could still at least somewhat make do with what he had. And this year, Ryan Grubb, you could see that his offense was already figured out after halfway through the season. I actually saw a report, or not a report. I watched the Seahawks' Brendan Nelson. And he even said himself, he said that the Seahawks are even considering firing him before the bye week because of how subpar he has been up to that point. And I wouldn't have, honestly, I probably would have questioned it at the moment, but after looking back, I would see these stats right here. We were below average in points per game, 21st in points per drive. His offense just isn't fit with our team. It's just simple as that. I thought it would be because we had the 3 wide receiver set like they had at Washington. But our team is built to run the ball. That's the way that Pete built this team, and that's the team that Mike is inheriting. Is a team that really should run the ball first, and we need a better O-line to do so. John Schneider's got to stop neglecting the O-line. That's one thing I kind of hope maybe that wasn't all him. It might have been Pete. We'll see after this season, but I hope that we spend a lot of our resources this offseason on the offensive line, because that's the biggest hole that we need to fix. But this right here is the reason why Ryan Grubb was fired. We didn't run the ball, and another thing is we didn't use play action, which is what his bread and butter was at Washington. Apparently, I think Ryan Grubb understood that his last game in Seattle was going to be against that Rams game. So he decided to pull out all the cards and started using play action like there was no tomorrow, because there really was no tomorrow for him. He got fired the next day. Apparently, Geno led dead last among all qualifying quarterbacks at play action rate, using play action rate at 16.7%. That's on the offensive coordinator right there. And I know Gino has, he has a say and he changes the play at the O-line, but Gino's a yes man. He will do whatever the play call is given. So, I mean, you saw in that first Niners game at the end, he was like, "What the y'all doing?" Because he's yelling at the coaching staff like, "What are we doing here?" I know we were down like 36-24 and the game was over, but it's like, bro, what are we doing here? So, honestly, looking at that, it honestly makes me want to kind of walk back some of the stuff I said about Gino. Because, like I said, the thing is I've said that Gino just needs to cut out with the mistakes. But then again, I have said in the past that Gino does not need to be on this team next year, and I may stay with that going into the offseason depending on how things go. But I also said that Ryan Gribb doesn't need to be here next year. So, and I have put a lot of the blame on Ryan Gribb in past games, not just Gino. So, it was clear that what part of the culprit was Ryan Gribb, of course. And, I mean, when you see that Gino ranked dead last in play action passes, I mean, that's not a quarterback thing. That's a play calling thing right there. So, I don't know why he decided to wait until the very last game to have Gino drop back on 45% of his passes, but he did. And ultimately, it cost him his job as the Seahawks offensive coordinator. So, that Bears game, man, that was the nail in the coffin for me. Like, he just needs to go. You can't put 6 points on a team that's in contention. I don't know if they're still top 5 pick, but they weren't good. They weren't good. And I understand that the Bears defense was, above average, but we have a bunch of playmakers on offense to not. We have too many playmakers on offense to only have 6 points on the board against a team that's tanking. So that was the nail in the coffin for me, really. And I think that was a nail in the coffin for the Seahawks as well. I'm surprised they didn't fire him right after the game, but I think they just wanted to see what he would do against the Rams. And, well, the Rams, they rested all their starters, basically. So that win was really was meaningless on our end. I mean, like I said, if the Rams get bounced out in the first round, then maybe it wasn't all for nothing, but still. I mean, when he used play action the most, he beat his career high in passing touchdowns. So, like, Grubb, what in the world? What were you doing the entire 17 weeks before this game, not running play action? Like, why? And that's the reason why he's not on this team anymore, guys. I know a lot of you guys like Grubb's upside, but like I said, we are in win now mode. We aren't worried about upside. We're worried about what you can do 2-3 years. We're not worried about what you can do 2-3 years from now. We're worried about what you can do now. And right now, Grubb can only lead us a below-average offense against a pretty light schedule, against a third-place schedule. We need a more dominant. We need an OC that's going to, fix this O-line and at least work with this O-line and just call better play calls, because there are a lot of play calls this year that Grubb called that just made me scratch my head, and that was just not okay. So, but I'm gonna move on to. Actually, before I do that, I just want to go over Mike's first season in Seattle. Like, I know I said earlier in the video, I congratulated him, and firstly, I also saw he is the first head coach in Seahawks history to reach double-digit wins in their inaugural season. Let alone a guy that has ever. This is from a guy that has never ever coached a team before at any level. So that's really, really impressive, and should really show the potential that Mike has for this team, as long as he gives him the pieces that he needs. His defense is just going to get better. The offense, though, will get better under his guidance, under John's guidance. It's really all up to John in the end, but I know Mike is going to have his input and his say on who we hire next for our next offensive coordinator. And the offensive coordinator position has been a nightmare for the past 5 years. I mean, we had Brian Schottenheimer, fired him, had Shane Waldron, then he got let go, and now we have Ryan Grubb. That's 3 offense coordinators in 5 years, and none of which you haven't had a top. I think the 2022 we had a top 10 offense, but you haven't really done anything. So we'll see what happens. This will be our 4th offensive coordinator in 5 years once we hire the guy. But McDonald, he took a good yet very flawed team and led it to 10 wins. And that cannot be, like I said, that cannot be ignored, and that is something that needs to be talked about. And we beat 2 playoff teams, technically speaking. We beat the Broncos back in week 1, who ended up being a playoff team. And then we beat the Rams, technically speaking, but they were resting starters. So really, but like a lot of our wins were against below 500 competition, like the Jets, the Cardinals. But we always seem to own them, so I guess I won't really include that. And then we did beat the Niners, but they're a non-playoff team. But considering that they've owned us for the past 2 years, 3 years, it does mean a little bit something. But yeah, just not like the Dolphins with Skylar Thompson, the Patriots who ended up firing their head coach after throwing. They literally threw a game by winning, because if they won that game, they would have gotten the first overall pick, I think. Instead, the Titans got it, so they fired Gerard Mayo. But yeah, a lot of our wins just weren't against good competition, and it shows in us being below average in scoring offense. Like, it's one thing if Ryan Grubb had led like a top 10, top 5 scoring offense against this weak competition, but no, he was below average and dead last in running, dead last in rushing the ball, or not dead last, 5th worst in rushing the ball, 5th worst in attempts, dead last in play action usage. Like, there's just no room for that on this team. So I honestly thought we were going to stay with him for another year, because they'd be like, okay, maybe we just need to revamp this offensive line. But no, this shows that Mike does not care. Mike is a no-nonsense kind of guy, and this is just a huge difference from being under Pete. Pete, when we would have a bad year, and like with Kenny Norton, for example, horrible defense, but he kept him on as a DC for a few years. It only took massive outrage from the fans and us for him to finally get fired. But this is not Mike. Like I said, Mike's not Pete. Mike runs his team differently than Pete. He does not mess around. You mess up, you're gone. Laviska Shenault, cut. D. Williams, cut after having horrible games against a team that missed the playoffs for the 14th straight year. So, and had like their 10th straight consecutive losing season. That's what we like to see from our head coach. Like I said, Pete wouldn't really hold players accountable and coaches accountable like Mike is right now. And this is very refreshing to see. But I want to move on to the guy that I think should be able to turn this offense around, at least make it better than what it was this year, and that is Hank Fraley. So, for those of you who do not know Hank Fraley, he is the offensive lineman coach for the Detroit Lions, who, as you know, has a top 3 offense in the league and just has been dominating people at the line all year long. Granted, he is working with like 4 first-round picks on the offensive line, but you still have to coach these guys to do well. Let's see. They easily outpaces Bills, the second-place team Bills, 564 to 525 total points. They are one of 4 teams to score over 500 points this year. More to the point, they outscored the Hawks by 189. That's 11 points per game more than what we scored per game, and that is a massive difference. And the reason why I think he would be a better fit for this offense is because I feel like he fits what Mike wants. He will fix this line, get this line to be more dominant so that we can run the ball, play more smash mouth defense like the Lions are doing. That's what they do. They wear out your D-line with running the ball, and they just shred you through the air because your D-line cannot get pressure, so the quarterback just has 50 years in the pocket to throw. I mean, look at Jared Goff. That dude has like 5+ seconds each time in the pocket every time the ball is snapped. That's good. Obviously you have to have the talent to do that, but that's also good coaching right there. Obviously, Ben Johnson has ultimate say in that, but Hank Fraley knows what's up because he's the one that's coaching these guys on the O-line. So, and he knows what Ben Johnson wants out of this offense, and I think that this would fit perfectly with what Mike is wanting. Facing this O-line, running the ball, and I feel like using more play-action pass because that is something that we apparently just didn't use, and we were dead last in using. So, I know there are other candidates like Clint Kubiak, which I actually would be okay with as well. Even though he's kind of had an iffy past couple of years, but he's been in bad situations, so I can't really fault him too much for that. And the thing is like when they were fully healthy, and our team fully healthy is better than the Saints fully healthy. They scored the most points in the first 3 weeks of the season when fully healthy. And keep in mind, this is with Derek Carr, and not really a lot of weapons outside of what Rashid or some whatever his name is, and Chris Olave. I mean, who else do they really have? An aging Kamara. Like their offense is really not what it used to be, and they had. I mean, it's a 3 game sample size, but I feel like Clint Kubiak would be okay. But I lean more towards Hank Fraley because of the offense that the Lions run over there and how it complements. It's not just because it's a great offense, but I do think that it complements what Mike wants. Obviously, they know what's best. Mike and John know what's best, but we'll see what happens. I mean, the thing is like the good thing about firing our offensive coordinator literally the day after our season like completely ended. It gives us a little bit of an advantage because we can be patient and the time is on our side. Because like I said, we already have the head coaching established, so we don't have to worry about that. We just have to worry about the coordinator situation, and that's okay. Now that Mike will have his first full, real offseason with this team. Yes, I mean technically speaking, you can count last year, but he was getting up to speed and basically getting acclimated to the Seattle environment and how we play football. Now that he has that under his belt, we can go into this offseason with a bit more of a pep in his step, a little more purpose, and plus, since our season ended earlier than he anticipated, we get a head start, which obviously we don't want that to happen, but it does play in its favor. So, so far this offseason is looking good. We'll just have to wait and see what happens at the draft. I mean, that's really how this draft goes will determine how next season and the future on goes, pretty much, because this draft is going to be really important. There aren't really a lot of great players to pick, but you're going to have to find some players, and there are going to be some good players that, with the right coaching, they will blossom. I don't know if we'll get a quarterback this draft. That is a complete enigma by me. I mean, knowing our history and us drafting quarterbacks, I don't think we will, because since 2010, I think we've only drafted, I'm not going to count undrafted, 2 quarterbacks, Russell Wilson and Alex Mago. Comment below if I'm missing someone, but those are the 2 notable quarterbacks, and I won't even consider Alex Mago notable because he's no longer in the NFL. We don't draft quarterbacks, so I don't expect us to draft one this round or this time around, but we'll see. I just don't think that the quarterbacks in this year's class is just not. I don't think they're that appealing. Versus like last year with Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud, pretty good. So, or not last year, the year before, I should say, because last year was like Bo Nix and them. Like going into this year, the 2024 draft. 2023 draft was Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud. That was a pretty good quarterback class. And honestly, even last year, because look at Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels. They're balling out in the rookie season. So, they balled out. And Caleb Williams. He's actually had a good year. People say that Caleb Williams isn't doing well. He's 19 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, like 3,500 passing yards in his first. Yeah, so like this past year's class was really, really good. And then this year's class, it kind of flops. It's just not that good. We'll see what happens next year. Like Ewers, he's not really no. Ewers, no. I think Aller needs to just spend one more year in the NFL. Jackson Dart, no. I feel like Shedeur Sanders is overrated. In my opinion, I feel like Cam Ward has a higher upside than him because of his rushing ability, only if Cam Ward can develop his passing ability. But I don't know what we will do in the draft. I hope that offensive lineman is at the top of John Schneider's board, and I feel like it might be. We probably won't get. I think his name is Kevin Banks out of Texas. He's going to go top 10. So unless we're willing to shell out picks to go to the top 10, I don't think that's going to happen. And plus, we already have a tackle in Charles Cross, who's been, I think we're gonna exercise his 5th-year option. He's been pretty good for us this year. He was 9th overall in tackles out of like 100 something, so that's pretty good. I mean, yeah, it's not who we wanted him to be after getting picked 9th overall. When you're picking someone 9th overall, you're expecting multiple Pro Bowls and all pros. He hasn't played like that, but he has played at an above average level, which is fine. And I think the play around him has really stifled who he can really be because of how bad the O-line is. So, we'll see what happens there. I mean, we could pick someone with our 18th pick, or we could trade back and load up on picks. I'm also in favor of that, to be honest. We do have comp picks. I saw on Over the Cap that we have 3 comp picks. one for Damian Lewis, one for Jordan Brooks, and then one for Bobby. We get a 4th, 5th, and 6th rounder is what we're projected to get, and we can use those and to trade up or something. I mean, if there's a player that we really like, we can use those picks to go and get them. So we'll see. But so far, I like how this offseason is going, and they're not wasting any time in trying to find their next offensive coordinator, but they know they have time, which is what I like to see. So we'll see what happens, and hopefully you guys enjoy the playoffs. Like I said, I'm rooting for any team against the Rams is my friend. So I'm honestly my Super Bowl prediction is going to be Lions. I really am leaning towards Lions Bills, but honestly, there's a chance it could be. I think the Ravens could potentially break through, and it could be Lions Ravens. I do think the Lions are going to go, even with as injured as they are. The way that they dismantled the Vikings on Sunday night just shows that this team is above anybody else right now, and no team can really see these guys right now. So we'll see what happens. I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs made it again, though, knowing these guys. They pull black magic every single week to get their wins, so I wouldn't be surprised if they were in the Super Bowl as well. But, yeah, stay tuned for the offseason. I'll try to get some more updates as the offseason goes on, but I've been pretty busy, and school's about to start back up, so I'm gonna be battling my final semester of school and a full-time seasonal gig, so I'll try to release videos, but it won't be as much as I've been doing it the past couple months, so just keep an eye out. But I think that's all I have for this video. If you like the video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share for more Seahawks and Seattle sports content. Thank you for stopping by. Have a good day, and go Hawks, go Mariners, and go Kraken.